Levi Toby is not coming back to Pesachim now. It says he's finding Eiruvin very hard.
What was he doing in Gibraltar?
That was bothering me.
Huh?
That was just family. I've got a shell of lochas. I was told to be the 8 o'clock prompt.
92 grand, wow.
Have you seen?
Bought it?
Well, the whiskey, I bought. Levi Toby is not coming back to Pesachim now.
Oh.
Levi.
What's
What's a magic count?
Yeah. No chance to get away with that. Don't even think about that.
The Thursday has to be the 8 o'clock prompt. So. Oh, I
He fills it up every day. That's his plastic bag on the beach. By the time you're there, take it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You know, Rob, he started out. Yeah.
You know what we should buy already?
What? Yeah, yes, I'm thinking. That's what I was thinking.
We need like a big screen here.
That's right. Do this next project.
Yes, we can turn this into a top.
Okay, Tolly. Tov Mem Aleph, Tov Mem Beis, Tov Mem Gimel, Tov Mem Dalet, Tov Mem Hey, Vov, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Ranun.
Can you just upload the whole book?
It's actually all the way, the first, there's 12 pictures. Can you do 12 pictures, Tolly?
From top and Aleph all the way till
Nun Beis. Actually, you could do in Tov Mem Gimel, Tov Mem Dalet.
I should do both those pages.
Both those pages, yes. Okay, can I carry on while you're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, very briefly. Yesterday we talked about the fact there are 3 kinds of chatzeros, the Mishnah. 3 kinds of chatzeros. One kind is where there's no wall in between, and then what happens is you have to make an eruv together, else you cannot carry in each garden, right? Another situation, you have a proper wall between, and then what's the halacha? The halacha is that each one carrying their own, but you cannot make an eruv together, right? So it's either separate or joint. And we talked about the window, which is the best of both worlds, where you've got the option. If you want, you can make an eruv together. If you want, you can make an eruv separately. That was the first Mishnah of our faith. This Mishnah continues with this theme, and it just talks about walls between chatzeros. So let's see the Mishnah inside. A wall between 2 chatzeros. If it's 10 tvachim high, it's 4 tvachim wide. Because you've got a proper wall. Since it's 10 tvachim high, you cannot make an eruv together. You have a wall between. So if you've got a garden hedge between you and your neighbor, you cannot make an eruv together. Let's say you've got a wall, and we're talking about a wall which is 10 tefachim high and 4 tefachim wide. This wall, how wide is it? About tefach. It's about a thick wall. Like you have these sometimes you go in the farm walls. They have made a lot of rocks together.
Yeah, cement, non-cement.
That's right. There's a thick wall, a mason's wall, a thick wall. So if it's 10 tefachim high and 4 tefachim wide, and you've got fruit on top. So what's the halacha? You're both allowed to climb on top of the wall and eat, but none of you are allowed to take the fruit down. Why? Because the wall is considered a separate rishus, and if you take fruit, because it's thick, exactly. Because the wall is thick. 4. Very good. Yeah, it's picture.
Well, it's like its own rishus, right?
Okay, not brilliant. There's not really an exact picture of it, but it's similar to Tov Mem Aleph.
And who does it belong to? This
very good. Does belong to? It's a shared wall.
If it's a shared wall, then you can do a nail with them.
No, you can't. Because at the end of the day, you've got a barrier between you.
Yeah, but if it's shared, then it's like just having
something on the wall.
Yeah.
Very good.
Who can take it?
You can go onto the wall and climb on top of the wall and eat it, but you can't take the wall from the wall down. Being more discusses it. Very good. What happens if there's a breach in the wall? Then until 10 amos wide, you've got a choice. Up to 10 amos wide is considered an entrance. So therefore, you've got a choice. You can choose. Either make an area separately. Let's say me and Tolly have a garden. And the end of the garden, there's a wall between the two of us. and there's a breach in the wall. Up to 10 amos, we can see it as either we both have a separate garden, or we can make a joint together because it's got an entrance. But if the breach is more than 10 amos, you can only make an Eruv together, you can't make a separate Eruv. The logic is very, very clear and it's very straightforward. No, because once it's more than 10 amos, not because it's possible, but there's no such thing as an entrance which is more than 10 amos wide. So therefore it's considered like a proper wall which has fallen down.
What if you make a Pesach in this wall, you can't make an Eruv between?
No.
10 amos.
No.
Small.
Up to 10 amos you can make an Eruv between. More than 10 amos, you have to make a Eruv. No, I mean, if it's got no breach at all,
then you can't carry on top.
You can't make an Eruv together. You can only make it separate. If there's an entrance, you've got a choice. If it's more than up to 10 amos, you still have the choice. Once it's more than 10 amos, you don't have a choice. If you've got a breach between you and your neighbor, which is more than 10 amos wide, which a lot of people have on King's Road in the Fun Garden, you cannot make an Eruv by yourself because it's considered as if your two gardens are open up onto each other.
You need to make it.
So then, or don't carry in your garden.
It's as if there's
That's right,
no
as if there's no wall at all.
What is the thing of the top of the wall?
Right,
That is the choice of what?
that's the world's going to discuss. Right. Okay. No. Okay. Let's go through it again. The emes. Let's think about it for a minute. Imagine this is the wall, right? This is the wall. It's 4 tvachim thick. This is 4 tvachim thick. It's 10 tvachim high. Between me and Chaim. So he owns that garden. I own another garden. So this part really min haTorah. What's its status? Min haTorah, there's absolutely no problem to carry from there to my garden from his to why. It's a shared garden, so it's like a garden which is yachid. You're allowed to. With Rabbanan, we don't allow you because the garden wall, the top of it is a shared area, and to carry from there to me would be carrying from a shared domain to a private domain, which is forbidden.
Why can't you do that in the neighborhood?
Why can't you make an Eruv together? Because since there's a wall across the entire garden, so therefore you can't consider, you can make maybe an Eruv on the wall, but that won't make sense. You can make a wall on top of this, it's not proper rishus. So what happens is you can't make an Eruv from my garden to your garden because there's a wall in between. So we can't make an Eruv together. There's a wall. There's no opening to this wall. There's only the top of the wall. The top of the wall is like as if it's shared together. It's as if we don't. It's a new area which belongs to both of us, and therefore we're allowed to go on top and eat, but we can't take down from the top. And,
What's the now like holding out the wall? You can pass through a big.
Right. When you've got an entrance between walls, so then we look at it as if we can join up the two gardens together, like a window or a doorway. Here, you don't have a doorway or window. The wall is 10 tefachim high. It's only on top of the wall that you have access. It's not. A window has to be within 4 tefachim. This is above 10 tefachim. Since it's above 10 tefachim, the access is so weak that we consider it as if two separate gardens. Yeah, the access, because it's above 10 tefachim, the access is so bad, it's as if it's two separate gardens.
And obviously the thickness of the walls are made.
Oh, that the Gemara discusses. Oh, anybody out bar mat. Why happens we've got less than 4 tvachim on the thickness? If you got a wall, right, imagine I have a garden till this wall, you have a garden from this wall, it's less than 4 tvachim thick. Neither of us can move anything. Why? Because it belongs to both, you mustn't touch it.
If it's less than 4.
If it's less than 4. Think about it. You and your neighbor have a garden. And up to the wall, and then you got a wall which is less than 4 tvachim, so it's not a proper rishus of its own. So what is that? What's on top of the wall? What would you consider the top of the wall?
I wouldn't consider it a wall, really.
High, 10 tvachim high, 3 tvachim high, 30 centimeters thick. It can be quite thick, and it's 10 tvachim high. What would you consider the top of the wall? What status would you consider the top of the wall? Let's say, for argument's sake, that you'd have something growing on top of that wall. Who would it belong to?
Both.
Right, both. So therefore, you don't know which part belongs to who. Since you don't know which part belongs to, you're not allowed to move it at all, because whenever you move it, you might be moving it from one rishus to another. You're allowed to take up and take down the corner of the He holds it's not a separate rishus, and it is mutter.
Because it doesn't have that 4 tvachim.
Because it doesn't have that 4
tvachim. So the same would
tvachim.
be if it was less than 10
So,
and 4 thick.
No.
Different?
Less than 10 and 4 thick, then would be considered as if the two gardens are overlapping. Then you've got a choice to make an Eruv together or not. Or you don't have to, you can make a separate Eruv, but then you have a choice to make an Eruv together. Then
What do we make a separate Eruv?
You need to make an Eruv. We're talking about Chatzeros over here.
I mean, because there's a 2 separate
Two sets. We actually had it in Shabbos, if you remember, something called a mocking patur.
Yes.
What is a mocking patur? Does everybody remember the dimensions of a mocking patur? It's very hard.
Something to do with the post box.
Yes, post box. What's the halachic dimensions?
10 by
Yes.
4 by 4, no?
More than 10 high.
No, it has to be less than 4 by 4
Less than
and less than 10 by 10.
So that's what this is.
That's what this is. It's a mocking patur. What's a mocking patur? Right, that's also mocking patur. Yes. Anything which is less than 4 by 4 is considered a mocking
So
patur.
then they can carry on.
Very good. So the Gemara is going to ask her now.
And you don't need the ear to pass to the neighbor. They can.
Oh,
they can
do you remember what the Gemara says about mocking patur?
No, you're not allowed to do this.
You're not allowed to do this as a trick. Let's say I live on M62 and my house has got a pillar outside my front garden, and next after that is and that's our front doorstep. I can't say that this pillar is a mocking patur, so I move things onto the mocking patur because that's mutter, and then from the mocking patur into shushabim, that's forbidden. That's a loophole. Do you have why it's a loophole? Do you realize why it is a loophole? Let's say this. Why is it mocking patur? Let's go quickly. Why is it called a mocking patur? So what? What's the spot? It's not Rosh Hashanah because it's not big enough to be Rosh Hashanah. It's less than 4 by 4. It's not Rosh Hashanah, certainly not. And it's not a Carmelist because Chazal felt that it doesn't look like Rosh Hashanah either. So it's a mocking patur. So if I've got this outside my house, I'm allowed to theoretically, I'm allowed to take it from my house onto there and from there onto Rosh Hashanah. But Chazal didn't want it. Okay, let's look more inside. So now, first of all, try to make a Mishnah. They both go up on the tree and the wall and eat. You can go up, yes, but you're not allowed to take things up. So it's
make a gazera that you're not allowed to eat on it in case you bring.
Why didn't they?
Yeah, why not?
Because it's only with Rabbanon if you take it down. They didn't feel a need to make a gzera to a gzera. So what is if it's got 4 by 4, you can go up but not take down. Why can't you take down? Because it's considered a separate rishus. So you can eat while you're on top of the wall, but you can't take from the wall down. If it doesn't have 4 by 4 malinami, even allowed to take it out. So again, let's get the halachas clear. A wall which is 10 tvachim high, 4 tvachim thick, you're allowed to, according to everybody, climb on the wall and eat there. Everybody agrees you cannot take from the wall down. Why? Because since it's 4 tvachim thick, it's considered a separate rishus, and when you take it from the top of the wall down, it's no good. That's why I told you once, Yosimor once said to me, many people, now the man just got an Eiruvin, but before it had an Eiruvin, what would people sometimes do as a nice thing to the child on Shabbos? They would see a wall walking along a property, and the wall could sometimes be 4 tvachim thick, 10 tvachim high, which would give it the status of. They would pick up the child from King's Road, stick him on the wall, walk with him. I used to love my children love doing, and then what happens? Take him down. You've just picked him up. Okay, we still on this as well. You're right. Still on this as well. And people don't realize that it's forbidden. And sometimes, for example, the child drops his capital or something. You pick up the capital, you put it on the wall, then you don't have the head of chadnus. That's one. Okay.
It's not like anymore.
What?
No. Even if someone doesn't hold of it,
I didn't hear that.
Don't hold it.
No, so Manchester Eiruvin belongs to everybody. Yeah. So it's fine. Okay, I don't get too much of the points. Again, if it's 10 tvachim high, 4 tvachim wide, it's a shochet. Less than 4 tvachim have machloikas. If it's 10 tvachim high, less than 4 tvachim wide, what is the halachic name for this wall?
Was it less than?
10 tvachim high, but less than 4 tvachim wide. Mocking patur. Yet, even though we know that you're allowed to carry from it to a shusayachit and from a shusarabim onto mocking patur, you're allowed to. Came along Rav, which was the first statement in our mission, after our mission, and he said that if I have a mocking patur between my garden and your garden, I can't carry into the garden and onto the wall, and you can't. And now the world's going to ask in a lengthy way that that's a very strange thing. Why in the world not? So first of all, it says Rabbi Yochanan's got a support. Let's see Rabbi Yochanan's support. As Rabbi Yochanan Tamei, Rabbi Yochanan goes to Shita. A place which is now 4 by 4. Both the Shusarabim and the Shusayach they kasipala. Both the Shusarabim and the Shusayach are allowed to put things down on it. We mustn't swap. That was picture tough. Oh, that's tough, Mem Aleph. If you look at it very carefully, you've got a grey area which is Shusayach, a black area which is Shusarabim. and it's got no 4x4. So you can't put on. You can put on it, but you mustn't take from it to underneath it. You can't. You're not allowed to. Why not? Because that's it. You can't move things from Shizachit to that wall and then from that wall to the Shizravim, because that would be a loophole of Kain Shizachit to Shizravim. But you are allowed to pass back to Shua. So that's not the first picture.
But I mean, it wouldn't help. It wouldn't help you going from Shizravim to Shizravim. It's the other way around. Sure.
Why both?
It's not like Kain Shizravim.
Unless you want to eat something Shizravim. Okay. Says the Gemara, Vavav, blessed to have Timmy, to have the whole of Timmy. Ibishus to Raisa Hanami. Ochmaskid Bishus to Abonum, Chachamos, Chizik de Vem, Yism shall tell us as a murder Kiddish. If it was a Shusayachit to Shusarabim, it would be mutter to put on the Moki Patur. But we Shusayachit to Shusayachit, which is only to Rabbanim. From my garden to your garden, what's the is of carrying? To Rabbanim. And there they were more concerned than the Raisas because people are Makol. So therefore they didn't allow you to do that. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to go on to a new topic, and that is when you've got a wall which is 10 tefachim high, are you allowed to move things from your garden onto it?
Depends how wide.
If it's 4 tefachim wide, not. Now what happens, many times I've got it in my garden. No, you can climb onto the wall and eat on top of the wall. You can't move things. Now we discuss many different scenarios where there could be mutter. For example, there are 2 gardens I've got in my garden where the wall from my garden is only 5 tefachim high. For my neighbor's garden, it is 10 tefachim high because his garden is slightly lower than my garden. They have it in very lots, especially on Tewksbury Drive.
Oh, well, there was a hill.
There's a hill. So what happens is you've got one wall. So on one side it's 5 tefachim high, next side is 10 tefachim high.
Same fence. But the
Same
ground's
fence.
on different.
So what would you say that halach is? Am I allowed to? I've got only 5 tefachim from my garden to the top. Can I carry
On
from
your side of the wall.
on my side of the
Yeah,
wall?
why
Can I?
not?
Oh, can he?
No.
Oh, that's what Moses says. Omar Rabbi Mavun Rab Nachman, Krisus b'shtei chatzeres, like a wall between 2 chatzeres. Siddur echad gevei asot tzvach v'tziddur echad shovel oretz. This is shovel oretz. Here we have shovel oretz. I mean, literally 10 that b'shuv daven zeh tashmish benachas, zeh tashmish b'kosher. B'chol zeh benachas, zeh b'kosher. This is tashmish benachas. So that is picture top main base. If you look at the picture,
What happens if the garden's got different levels?
look at the picture top main base. You've got one garden and another garden next to it, and there's a wall in between. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So then you can only carry. Right.
2 separate gardens. Once you say it's the same garden.
Well, I was in the same garden. You got different parts. It's different.
It's all mutter. It's all mutter because it's your garden. You're allowed to do what you want in it.
If you've got the garden goes down, so at one end of it, the wall's 10, and at the beginning part.
Ah.
Which way you're standing.
Oh, we'll see. Well, there's a guy from the Gemara that would be okay. Now look at Tofmem Gimel for 1 second. Tofmem Gimel is exactly the same story, except instead of it being a wall 10 tefachim high, it's a ditch 10 tefachim deep. And on one side the ditch is 10 tefachim deep, and on the other side it's only 5 tefachim deep.
In the ditch.
Where?
Oh, the down's the same as up.
So what would that halacha be?
The down's the same as up.
Yes, that's right. You want to put something into the ditch. So what would that halacha be?
The guy from 10's got a problem. The guy from 5 hasn't.
Very good. I ask you, did the Gemara need to tell me that?
No.
Oh, you could write the Gemara yourself. So why does the Gemara tell it to me? So the Gemara says when you put.
Down is the same as up.
No, so the Gemara asks us as a question. Let's get more clarity. That's right. Exactly the same. Says the Gemara. Omar Shizbi, Omar Nachman, Chavir, it's a ditch. One side the ditch is 10 tefachim deep, and one side is close to the land. Since one side it's as deep 10 tefachim, and one side is not, so you give it to the one which is 5 tefachim deep.
You've got a garden that's on a hill. Right. Top of the garden is 5 tefachim, bottom of the 10 tefachim. Right,
so that's what she asked. That's that. We'll see in a minute. We'll see mamish this shot. But tzvichi, well, why do you have to have 2 halachas? I can work one from the other. That means if I've got a wall 10 tefachim high on my side, and your side is 5 tefachim, you said that you can use it, I can't. It's obviously you can extrapolate that the same halacha would be if it's 10 tefachim deep, and then for me it's 10 tefachim deep, and for you it's only 5 tefachim deep, that I can't, and you can. It's exactly the same logic. Why do you need to tell me both halachas? So what tzvichi. People use a wall more than a ditch. Why? Because it's easier to put things on 10 tefachim than to bend down. So you might have thought if it's 5 tvachim deep of the ditch, even the one who's got it 5 tvachim should not be allowed to. Why not? Because not so accessible. It's not so accessible. Right, so therefore that's the chiddush, that a ditch is less accessible than a wall. So you might have thought yes. No, so we don't, the Gemara tell you that up to 10 tvachim is okay. The Gemara, so let's teach me only by the ditch and then I don't need the wall. When you put something in a ditch, you're very safe. Why? It's not going to fall. But when you put it in the wall where you're still nervous, the thing will fall and break. You might have thought in such a case you're not allowed to tzricha. That means no. That means you might have thought that the word that's what, that the word.
10 anyway, you're not allowed.
That's right. That's right. That by 5 also you're not allowed to, or by 9 you won't be allowed to, or 8 you won't be allowed to, because you might anything on the wall would be forbidden. Even if, that's right. Not only by 10 is it forbidden, very good, but even by 5 it's forbidden because even though it's comfortable to use, but you're nervous afterwards. Kamash Malonda in both cases. So you must remember this. Let's say you've got a war between you and your neighbor. You don't have a neighbor. You've gone on holiday, for example. You've gone on holiday, and you've got a farmhouse, and there's a wall around your property, the garden. And on one side the wall goes 10 tvachim high, but from your garden it's only 3 tvachim high or 5 tvachim high. You're allowed to pick up your child and make him walk along the wall because from your side it's less than 10 tvachim high. Yes. It might fall on the side, so you have to hold your child's hand. Right. Right, now, you're right. Here we're going to have more situations, more pictures. What happened was somebody now wants to make the walls lower. Look at Tov Mem Dalet. If you look at Tov Mem Dalet, how can you make it lower? How can you make a wall lower? Oh, you put a stage, a pile of sand or some trees.
Well, if it's permanent, then yes. Not.
Very good. You could have. I just want to point out to you. Look at Tov Mem Dalet for 1 second. Look at Tov Mem Dalet. Rashi gives you 3 options. You put a platform, sand, or bits of wood. Tov Mem Hey. Can you look at Tov Mem Hey for a second? What do you do in Tov Mem Hey? Tov Mem Hey, you chip the wall. Tov Mem Vav, very briefly, you take a bowl, your Negavasa bowl, you turn it upside down.
This is something done before Shabbat, right?
Yes, very good. Tov Mem Zayin. What do you do in Tov Mem Zayin? Because I don't want to keep turning back for the pictures. Ladders. Tov Mem Ches, you did even better. A ladder on both sides, but you went.
Like having an entrance.
Oh, very good. But here, what did you do? Look very carefully. You didn't make the ladders parallel, and you got the pictures.
So you have to use a wall to join it.
Tov Mem Tes.
There's a wider wall.
Tov Mem Tes is a wider wall. Oh, sure, as on it. Tov Mem Tes, you didn't put the ladders parallel, but you have such a thick wall that people are comfortable to walk along it. Look at Tov Mem Tes and Tov Mem Ches. It's fine. Look at Tov Mem Ches. Tov Mem Ches, the ladders are not parallel. But in Tov Mem Tes, the ladders are not parallel, but the wall is 4 tvachim thick. You'll miss the point to be a chaban. Tov Mem Tes, the wall is thick. Since the wall is thick, even if it's not parallel, you'll walk along the wall and come down the other side.
Is that okay?
Yeah, all of these are okay. So let's look more inside.
I would have thought that wouldn't be okay.
Says like this.
Using the wall to walk across.
So what? But we're talking about, is there an entranceway between my garden and your garden?
Yeah.
It's dead easy for me to go to your garden. I climb up the wall, walk across, and come down. If it's a very thin wall, I go up, I'm never going to walk across. If it's parallel or within 3 tvachim, so it's not so difficult. But if it's more than 3 tvachim apart and it's a thin wall, there's no way I'm going to be able to get into your garden. It says like this, if you want to make the wall lower, if there's less than 4 tvachim, that means the amount that you minus it, this is the wall. And you make a miyot, that means you put a tiny platform, but the platform itself is less than 4 tvachim wide. So I made a mistake. If it's got 4 tvachim, if it has got 4 tvachim, the width of the platform. That means the wall is 100 meters long. How big is your back garden? 100 meters about? So you make a platform 10 tvachim. So what happens is you put a platform which is 4 tvachim wide. So this is something Rashi and Tosfos go about it hammer and tongs. Literally, if you go through it, Tosfos over here, Arichas, every minute is upset with Rashi. Rashi says, no nafkimina how depth.
You can do it like this.
Yes, right. Even if it's like tiny ledge, it's good enough. Tosfos says, how can Rashi say such a thing? It has to be 4 by 4. And even the Gemara doesn't say 4 by 4, the Gemara means 4 by 4. Okay, it is not. It's not. It's not the same. But now we're talking about accessibility to this, to the wall. To the wall. So again, image but we'll keep with Rashi that you don't need 4x4. You just need to have a ledge 4 tefachim. You can use the entire wall. Why? Once you have the ledge, and the ledge makes it that you don't have to climb 10 tefachim from the ledge, as Rashi tells us many times. If the ledge is lower than 10 tefachim from the top of the wall, it doesn't help you. Unless its wall is 50 amos high, and you make a ledge, it's not going to help you at all. You have to make that the ledge is within 10 tefachim from the top.
You've always got to make that from the ground to the ledge.
That's a very important point. That the ledge itself has to be connected to the ground. We'll come to it later. If you make a ledge, for example, you've got a very high wall, you make one step in the wall, that's not going to help you. If it's not connected to the ground, even if it's within 10 tefachim, it has to be connected to the ground and within 10 tefachim of the top. But you made such a ledge 4 tefachim wide, that you can use the whole wall. Why can you use the whole wall? Because you use the ledge, get onto the wall, and you've got the wall to use.
We said pile of black
It's
wood.
all about. It's all about.
Pile of wood is also good, yes.
Why is that not fixed?
No, that's fine. We talk about a pile of wood where it's a proper pile of wood. And therefore, you can climb on the wood. The wood is 4 tefachim wide.
It's all about the access.
That's it. All about the access. If it's not 4 tefachim wide, if it's less than 4 tefachim wide, let's say you only made a platform of 3 tefachim wide, you can use opposite the top of the wall there and no more. You can't use this part of the wall, you can't use that part of the wall, only opposite the part of access where you put your ledge. Says the Gemara, the Gemara doesn't understand it. It's monafshach. If less than 4 tefachim gives you access, then you should be able to use the entire wall. If it doesn't work, even opposite that little bit, it shouldn't work. The Gemara explains, and this is an interesting logic. I try to explain it like this. When you've got a ledge less than 4 tefachim, the Gemara doesn't understand. If you can climb with a ledge
wide or deep?
Wide, less than 4 tefachim wide. The Gemara doesn't understand. If it's a good ledge, then you can get to the top of the wall and you should be able to use the whole wall. If it's not a good ledge, then you shouldn't be able to use any of the wall. What logic is there that you should? Let me just finish off. What logic is there that you should be able to use only opposite the ledge? That doesn't make any sense. Answers the Gemara, indeed, you're right. Less than 4 tefachim wide ledge is not a ledge because you can't climb on it. It's not a good ledge.
Why would you be able to?
But if you take off the top of the wall, that means let's compare picture Tov Mem Dalet to Tov Mem Hey. In Tov Mem Dalet, you've made yourself a ledge. If it's less than 4 tefachim wide, then it's not a good enough ledge. But if you've taken away part of the wall, like you've done in Tov Mem Hey, that part of the wall is still usable. For example, let's say 10 tefachim is very high. If you cut out this and then you can use that part, that's fine. So we're not describing over here the access, because if less than 4 tefachim would be accessible, then the whole wall will be okay. If it's not, none of the wall is good. The answer is you're right. Less than 4 tefachim is not good accessible. That means if you make a ledge less than 4 tefachim, you cannot get onto the wall. It's not considered accessible, and you cannot use the wall at all. But if you chip away from the top of the wall less than 4 tefachim, so the area that you've chipped away, that area is accessible, and therefore you can put things on top of the wall. Now, what do you want to ask?
Well, I don't understand why, because you put an edge here,
yes,
it gives you the right to use the entire top of the wall.
Answer is, once you've got a ledge here, you can, and it's less than 10 tefachim, you can get onto the wall dead easily.
Right.
And then the whole wall is part of your garden. Imagine you had a garden, and you had a wall at the back of your garden, and it was very high. But you've got a ladder getting to the top of the wall, or a step getting to the top of the wall. So once you have that step, you can then climb onto the wall and use the whole wall. But if it's not 4 tefachim wide, then you can't. Okay. Now it goes like this. If you turned over a bowl, mamayit, then that was also good enough. Craving more, anything that can be moved on Shabbos is not mamayit. Why is not mamayit it can be moved on Shabbos? Because since it's temporary, it's not fixed. Very good. You pushed it into the soil. Even if you push it into the soil, which is a fig, which sometimes what would happen is it wasn't completely ripe. So you wanted to get it ripe. What do you do if you got unripe fig? You put it into straw. A cake, which is not properly baked. You stuck it inside coals. So the same thing with a bowl. Just lift up the bowl, and the fact that it's a bit covered in soil, who cares? It's got handles, the bowl. and the handles are dug, embedded deep, and the only way you could take the bowl out is by causing the soil to move, and the soil is muktzah. Who cares if it's got handles? Well, it's not moved. Person hides a turnip or a radish in a vineyard. Bisman, top of iron zayin with base. All in the gulin. If part of the leaves are revealed, you don't need to worry about the next few things. There's no problem with kilayim. Why is there no problem with kilayim? Or you're planting in a vineyard? The answer is because some of it is megula. You're doing it to store. You've got radishes. You're not going to be able to eat all the radishes today. So you want to store them. So where are you going to store them? You stick them inside your vineyard. You don't have to worry about kilayim because since partly it's revealed, so therefore it's not considered planting and therefore it's okay. You do not need to be concerned that maybe the radishes will grow. And if they grow, you need to take a maisa from the growth. Because since partly it's revealed, it will not grow. You don't need to be worried that it's a year of Shemitah, that maybe it starts to grow, and then what will happen? You have to be the halachas of Shemitah. When you tell him, Shabbos, even allowed to take it on Shabbos, even though you're going to move the soil. Does anybody remember why would you be allowed to move a radish? Let's say this is a radish. I stick it to the ground. But I'm going to move the soil. The soil is muktzah. No, we're not about its cone shoot. That was a different case. You're right. The Gemara does about cone shoot. So if you're not doing, you're right. You're not doing koitza, but you're doing tiltul muktzah. As you move the radish out of the ground,
you're not doing it for the thing. You're doing it for the food.
So ask, what's the terminology? It's tiltul minatzad letzorech dova hamuta. Meaning, if this is a muktzah item and this is a non-muktzah item, am I allowed to move this muktzah item, non-muktzah item, even though this muktzah item will move? Yes, as long as my main intention is for this, right? Yes. Let's say, for example, you've got a pen, and you're trying. Let's say I've got my pen on Shabbos, and I want to take this piece of paper. It's got a shikuteh on it. I'm allowed to take it. Why am I allowed to take it? Oh, I'll move the pen. The answer is it's still tumun atzad. I never touched the book pen itself. I touched this. I didn't do it for the sake of the pen. I did it for this. If let's say I want to do it because of my pen I want to save my pen. So what I do is I move this in order to move my pen into a safe place. That would be awesome. Again, so over here, when you've got the radish which is stuck in the ground, you're putting the radish which moves the soil, but that's okay because you're doing it for the sake to eat the radish. So also over here, you'll be allowed to move the bowl. And we're talking about where you need a spade and a hoe to pull out the bowl, and therefore it's impossible to do it on Shabbos, and therefore it's a mat. Again, let's get it clear. Anything which gives you access to the ceiling of the top of the wall makes it mutter for you to walk along the wall on Shabbos. The rule has to be, though, it has to be something that is fixed. And it has to be something that gives you proper access. So for something proper access, it has to be 4 tvachim wide. Rashi and Tosfos argue back and forth. Does it have to be 4 by 4, or is it enough to be 4? And it has to be something fixed.
Do you have to use that access point?
You can use a different access point. It's a very good question, actually. You don't have to use the access point. Once you have the access point, so that the entire wall is considered part of your garden. So for example, the question you asked before, I think I asked it as well. If you've got a garden, and you've got a wall, and some of the wall is higher than 10 tvachim, and some of the wall is lower than 10 tvachim, can you carry on the wall?
Yes.
Very good. Of course you can. Very good. You can. That is the halacha. You can. Because you can easily access the wall. In fact, if you'd have such a wall, you'd be constantly concerned that your children would be climbing on top of the wall and then falling off it. So you'd be doing something. Why? Because they've got easy access to the wall. Says the Gemara right. Sulam Mitzri Einam Egyptian ladder, the kind of ladders they make in Egypt is not mamait. But Suri, the one making Suri mamait. And the more explains. If it doesn't have 4 rungs, that's not a good ladder. And the more explain very simply, a step ladder. Anything which got less than 4 rungs is very easy to move. So therefore, it's not permanent. Since it's not permanent,
the distance between the rungs.
We'll talk about that later. A ladder which has less than 4 rungs is so flimsy, it's so light that people move it all the time. So that does not give you access point to the wall because you'll move it on Shabbos. But something that has 4 rungs, you will move it on Shabbos. Something that has 4 rungs, you will not move it on Shabbos.
It's less than 400, but really have it.
So the Rishonim discuss, again, this is a good point, what happens if it's less than 4 but very heavy, or more than 4 and very light. That's the stage of it.
Now you
Suriname.
get down a million more. Lift it with 2 fingers.
Yes, you're right. And it's got many more than 4 arms.
Yeah.
Yes. The Machlekes Rishonim, are ladders inherently muktzah, or only muktzah means big ladders, or only if they're very, very heavy ladders. It's Machlekes Rishonim. Mechal brings both shittas. It's hard to get. So what it says? You know, here, something which can move on Shabbos is not a might. Tsui as well can be moved. Awesome because it's very heavy, you don't move it, and therefore it is moved. And therefore we want to discuss this. And let's say you've got a chest of drawers, which is very heavy. And suddenly your child, as we usually do, gets a bouncy ball, and the first second he plays with it, gets underneath the chest of drawers. Are you allowed to move it on Shabbos to get the bouncy ball out? You're right, it's a machlokas. And here we'll explain better. What is the machlokas?
Does it depend what's in it?
No.
Depends whether it's kavod.
The Gemara says kovdo. Because it's a heavy ladder, you kivya moked. The Rishonim explain as follows: that because it is heavy, so therefore technically you're not going to move it. There's no halachic issue over here. It is simply the reality is you're going to leave it there. Oh, there's a chance you want to move it. You can move it in theory. There's nothing wrong. Others say no. Kovdo means that once it is heavy, you've established and you've been maktzah it. There are certain things you put in muktzah because you know you're not going to use, like muktzah machmas chasson kiss. You're not going to use on Shabbos. It's very precious. Their heaviness makes it into muktzah. So it's machlokes the shidduch that the Ma'aser Mishnah Berurah says you should not move it, right? If you've got a cloak covered.
It's got other problems as well, like if you make like dragging it.
No, okay, I'm not talking about such a thing. You're right, you're right. It could be. What? No, that's not so heavy. Something
The
which
wheels make it portable.
something which you would never move, you cannot move, you would very, very rarely move, you should move on Shabbos. That is the halacha. Chaznish talks about, he once mentioned the grandfather clock, these very big grandfather clocks would be stuck in the place. You don't move them every Monday and Thursday. You move them once a year, probably for Pesach, just to check something behind it, but that's it. Oh, that's a shine. That's okay. Omar Abaya. Omar Abaya Kusas bin Shtei Chatzeros, a war between 2 Chatzeros. Gevoya Asot Tvachim, it's got 10 Tvachim high, V'niach Sulam Mochav Arbon Mikan, Sulam Mochav Arbon Mikan, Ve'in Mazel Ezeh Shlosh Tvachim B'mayed, Shlosh Einem B'mayed. But the Yomon did have a Kusal Arbon, okay, so Arbon from Mufluk Tovanami. Abaya says 3 halachas. You put a ladder on one side, a ladder on the other side. If they are within 3 Tvachim of each other, that's considered an entrance, and you can make an error between the two.
Even if it's a more.
Even if it's a thin. If it's more than 3 tvachim apart, that means the one ladder is here, another person puts the other ladder there, then it's not an entrance.
It's like having a doorway with
it's not an entrance because at the end of the day you can't get through because you can't get. If it's 4 tvachim wide on the top of the wall, that's a walkway. Oh, it's a nice word. Then what happens is you can climb up, walk along the walkway, and come down. And therefore, it's okay. And therefore, you would be allowed to make an eruv between. So, for example, if you want to make an eruv with your neighbor, what should you do? Put a chair there and a chair by your neighbor, and you're okay.
I thought chair's not heavy enough.
Right, so you'd have to be kovoy. How would you be kovoy? Dig it in the soil, or bang a nail into the chair, into the wall, where you won't be allowed to take it to. All right, that's a good idea. Or if you've got a very good these metal step ladders which actually go up and down, it is okay. Now, Omar Bibi Barabaya. Bona Itztava Gav Itztava. You build one platform on the next. Let's look at the pictures for a minute, then we'll describe. There's a few halachas of important halachas. These pictures are actually Tov Nun.
Like a step.
Tov Nun, yeah, it's like a step. And if you look very carefully, they've done it very small. It's a step within a step. Have you got it? It's a step. If you look carefully, there's a step within a step. Now, for a step to be good, how big does that have to be? What's the minimum width? Yeah, the last corner, I think I saw it. What? 4 tvachim. That's 4 tvachim wide. What happens if you've got a 4 tvachim wide, but it's more than 3 tvachim above the floor? It's no good. Why? Because it's called tolu be'avir. It's hanging in the wall. If you've got a very big wall of yad, you put a ledge in the middle of the wall. It doesn't help you. So it has to be within 3 tvachim of the ground.
Because level to the ground, because it was in the ground.
Right. Then level to the ground is good enough. Here you've got a solution. The platform on top, if you look very carefully in the picture, is 4 tvachim wide. But it's more than 3 tvachim above the ground. So what do? You make another platform underneath. And even if it's less than 4, it is okay. Why? Why is it if it's less than 4, it's okay?
It's within the.
The answer is because the one below is attached to the ground, and the next one from there to there, it's okay because it's within 3 tvachim. So if you look at actually,
you're using good dimensions from both.
That's right.
They have bad dimensions.
And you connect them together, and then you've got access to your. And you've got the article. If you look at the article, for example, later we're going to have it. What happens? Let me ask you like this: if you've got a ladder with the rungs are less than 4 tvachim wide, is that good or no good?
The width of the ladder.
Yeah, the width of the ladder, less than 4 tvachim wide. Good or no good? No good. Very good. No good. Why is it no good? Oh, I've got a ladder all the way up and down because the step has to be 4 tvachim wide. Very good. Now let me ask: what would happen if the ladder goes like this? Meaning the bottom rungs are wide, the narrow rungs are on.
So if you get to the height of 4, then you're fine. If it's 4 wide to the point of 4 high, then you're fine.
You're close. No, if it's 4 wide,
And it won't be 4 wide to the top.
but it won't be 4 wide at the top.
Because the height
As long as there's no more than 3 tvachim between each rung, then you'd be okay.
Right, but
up to a certain height.
But surely it's not to be. It's got to be higher than 4.
No, it has to be 4 tvachim wide.
But when you get up to height, it's still got to be 4.
No,
Just before the bottom, and then 2. When you hit 4, it's got to be 4 tvachim high.
no. As long as it's always less than 3 tvachim apart,
And that will connect
then they're all connected.
to the bottom
So
one.
if you
So
have
provided
if you
the
have a
base is 4 wide.
That's
right.
so
right.
if you have a funny shaped box like this,
That's also
and it's
good.
only 4 at the bottom,
Yeah,
it
that's-
goes 4 high.
That is what the Gemara is saying over here.
Yeah,
You
well,
stick a cone
That's the
next to the
finish.
wall.
Yes,
Well, it's got to be a wide.
it's not just the first two, it
Regular
goes all the
cone,
way
a
up.
regular cone 4 tvachim wide.
It's not just-
that's
A
it.
cone.
Oh,
Yeah, cone.
right.
But you can't stand on the cone though. That's the problem.
That's the same.
No, but that's still if it's 4 tvachim.
Yeah, but you can't stand on the cone, can you?
The 2 next
With a ladder, you can.
2 next to each other, 1 point
Okay.
each.
Well, if imagine a ladder goes to a point and at the top of the point you also can't stand.
Remember the width?
Can I just ask? Is a ladder?
Yes.
Like, is that so? You put 2 ladders like this on either side of the wall.
Yeah.
It's like having a door.
Yes,
So if your door's less than 4 tvachim wide, it's no good. Right?
that's right. Very good. If you got a door less than 4 tvachim wide between you and your neighbor, you cannot make an eruv together. Right. So that's the Gemara inside again. If you build a platform on top of a platform, if it's got 4 tvachim at the bottom on the might, in Nami. If it doesn't have 4, it doesn't have 3 between them.
Is that because you did that upside down cone?
That's right.
Is that you tripping out on
Yes.
the wall on top?
No, because if you have the wall, it's considered an access point. Because you've got now an access point. You've got the 4 tvachim, which is an access. Well, it's like this. There are 2 kinds of ladders. There are ladders which we talk about is step ladders, and there's what you call steps, staircases. What's the difference in a staircase and a ladder?
Well, it's a solid thing, no?
Right, solid. Then halachic nafkamina.
This one, yeah.
The halachic nafkamina is that when you've got a ladder, which we call a ladder, not a staircase, if between the rungs there's more than 3 tvachim, very good. I can see you could have done this all yourself. A ladder which is less, a ladder which has more than 3 tvachim between the rungs is no good because you can't say lobot because it's got air. But a staircase we don't care because it's continuous. So a ladder a ladder where the rungs are flying. What's mean that they're flying?
No space.
There's airspace. No, airspace. In the older days, they would use the same word for a staircase as a ladder. They always called it a ladder. So a ladder where the staircase is flying, meaning that there's air gaps between what we.
same thing, yeah.
A ramp's the same thing. Well, a ladder which we call a ladder, if it's got a bottom on 4, if there's no 3 tvachim between all the rungs and the bottom rung has 4, that's okay. I'm a bit disturbed, I must admit. I never thought about it. Well, Yehuda put that. What happens if you've got literally a flat thing and it goes into a cone? Like, would that be? That's not access point. I don't know.
Well,
Smash
you
off
need
this.
2 because you can put your foot on and
I know, but it's a bit difficult to understand. Okay, we've done a very lot, Baruch Hashem. We're stopping over here.
Well, just quickly,
yes.
You know some others, the rungs are made out of rope. What happens if it's not taught? So sometimes.
So then no. So you'd have to go according to. You'd have to go according to